From far and wide, Oilers fans, this is Dolany TV. And welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on Dolany TV. I'm Tyson. This is, of course, going to be an easier one for a lot of people to swallow. It's an interdivisional trade, which I think is where most people, if they have an issue, should, in my opinion, have an issue. So Vegas had this guy in the system for the past 2 years. He's played a total of 9 games for Vegas. He's bounced up and down between the AHL and the NHL. Vegas, I mean, look at the cast characters they have. They kind of have scraps from all over the NHL that work as almost a top-tier NHL team for the past 2 seasons. Honestly, Vegas 2 points out of second place in the Pacific Division right now. So now becomes the question, what do they do with Brandon Pirri, who has been returned to the AHL once again? Now, Brandon Pirri, I'm going to pull up a different stat site so as I can see his AHL stats, because Hockey Reference only shows me the NHL stats I want to see. Hold on, let me go get to Elite Prospects right there. So he's most recently in the AHL with the Chicago Wolves. Like I said, just got returned to them, and he's had 41 points in 28 games. That's not the number I'm looking at. Brandon Pirri, in his career, this guy is literally a goal scorer that the Oilers could use. The reason I'm saying this is, look right here, 66 goals in 235 games. All right? What kind of clip is that? 66 divided by 235. That's a 28% chance every game he's going to score, if you want to average it that way. Well, guess what? If the Oilers could pick him up with 35 games left in the season times 0.28, that would be 10 extra goals to their roster in those 35 games. That's massive, guys. That's an absolute huge improvement. Now, the question is, with Brandon Pirri, is what we're seeing in Vegas sustainable? He played 7 games so far this year in Vegas, and he has 6 goals, 3 assists, 9 points. The one big metric you got to look at with Brandon Pirri, however, is his shooting percentage. It's a 28.6. Essentially, if the Oilers were to make a move for Brandon Pirri, they would be once again gambling on a guy who has a shot percentage like Alex Chiasson. Now, we all love Chiasson. Oilers fans, you know what, this year have come to grow to very much so love, and when he's not in the lineup, miss Alex Chiasson. Well, guess what? This is another guy who I imagine you could pick up for real cheap. Like, Vegas loves shuttling this guy back and forth between the big club and Chicago, but what do you think? Like, why wouldn't you want to take a gamble, throw an offer out on Brandon Pirri? Because Brandon Pirri, 28 or 29 years old? 27 years old in 270 days, so might as well be 28 years old. Honestly, the kid is going to be gold if he gets some NHL time. He did have NHL time with the New York Rangers for what was a full season, 60 games played in New York and only 18 points. But we all know New York, I believe those were the years still under Alain Vigneault. So, like, you can't exactly fault Brandon Pirri. And let's go see what, like, the 12 points in 9 games in Vegas. I'm betting on that, especially the AHL production over the past 2 seasons, 52 points in 57 games and 41 in 28. Brandon Pirri needs some NHL time, and the Oilers need to make a run. Now, what is the question? What is the question? What do the Oilers have to give up to get a guy like Brandon Pirri? Well, that's a question mark in itself. If Vegas is comfortable shoving a 9-point scorer in 7 games back into the AHL, either they don't value him or they know what they're holding on to for good reason. And that, I know that sounds complicated, but Vegas loves their roster. Brandon Pirri doesn't necessarily fit within it. So what do? Do you just sit there and kind of, we hold on to this guy, bring him up again? Every time we bring him up and he scores goals, he gets more valuable. Or do you trade him now that his value might be a little bit higher? I'm not sure. It's a very tough call. But for the Oilers, honestly, we can part with a 3rd-round pick. And you give up a guy like Zach Kassian for him, that's a tough deal, right? That's a working man's deal. That's Zach Kassian in a 3rd-round pick for a guy in the AHL. That's a working man's deal. yes, granted, the guy's more than point per game in the NHL this season, but you give up Zach Kassian, who is an absolute wrecking ball when he's on his game, and you throw him out there against the Oilers in a playoff series. That could be devastating effects backwards for the Oilers. I don't think you'd want to do that, but a guy that I'm really targeting that the Oilers could roll in a deal like this for Brandon Pirri is a guy who, again, seems to be a bubble NHLer in my opinion, just based on stat line production. Exactly, that's what I was trying to say, and I thought I was going to trip up. 19 points in 58 games in his 25-year-old season with the Arizona Coyotes. Tobias Rieder, come on, you got to do better. And then goes and plays 6 games with LA last year. 20 games, 6 points. Sorry, my phone's going off and I'm getting all worried about trying to answer it. 7 points in 27 games for the Edmonton Oilers. There we go. Send that. So that's really it, right? Is if the Oilers can get a guy like Tobias Rieder out the door with a third-round pick for a guy like Brandon Pirri, honestly, what would you love to see out of Brandon Pirri with RNH and Jesse Puljujärvi, or RNH and Alex Chiasson, RNH, Zach Kassian, whoever you want to throw on the right wing, I don't care, Kailer Yamamoto. Honestly, if Brandon Pirri is shooting 28.6% and he can shoot above 20 the rest of the season, could you imagine what that would do for the Oilers' depth scoring if Pirri's averaging 2 shots a game? Oh man, that would be huge. And that's point production not only for Nuge, but the guy on the line as well, the defenseman on the back end. That is huge development in terms of scoring for the Oilers, especially if you can get Pirri for Tobias Rieder in a third-round pick. Do you go Tobias Rieder, third-round pick, and a sixth-round pick? I would. Or a seventh-round pick. Throw something. If Vegas says, hey, sweeten the deal a little bit, we are able to do that for a guy that has the stat lines that Brandon Pirri does, but doesn't command the absolute attention that Brandon Pirri does. Honestly, right now, I think I'm onto something in terms of saying somebody needs to trade for Brandon Pirri because everyone's baffled by what Vegas is doing with him. However, I really haven't heard many trade rumors involving Brandon Pirri. So let's go Brandon Pirri's cap friendly here. And let's see what we've got. Cap friendly Brandon Pirri. If I could get this going. Brandon Pirri-Lini. That's close, but not quite. Brandon Pirri, cap friendly. Let's go. Currently with Vegas Golden Knights. Look at this. Brandon Pirri is a $650,000 cap hit for the Vegas Golden Knights right now. That would be a $650,000 cap hit. Another Alex Chiasson. Why would the Oilers not want to gamble, especially given how Tobias Rieder has panned out? A third-round pick and Tobias Rieder for Brandon Pirri. Guys, I do not know how to argue this any other different than this is a no-brainer. This is 100% a move the Oilers win, 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 win. But as general manager of the Edmonton Oilers, one thing Peter Chiarelli does not like to do is win trades. So, you know what? Let's sit here. He's done 2 very good ones the last 2, but this is a major winner. Honestly, if Brandon Pirri comes in and scores 10 goals in 35 games, that would be a huge victory for Peter Chiarelli. That's a GM of the Year move. I mean, you have to have like 3 or 4 other things go right to be GM of the Year, but that would be a GM of the Year move if the Oilers make the playoff. Pirri contributes 10 goals, gets like 7 assists, whatever, 17 points, even if he's a half point per game production. That's massive for the Oilers, who aren't getting enough production out of their depth as it stands right now. So Brandon Pirri for Tobias Rieder and a third-round pick. Guys, I may be crazy. That again may be too low. I think Vegas might even ask for a second-round pick. But how, as the Vegas Golden Knights, can you justify saying, we want a second-round pick for a guy we don't want to give NHL playing time to? That doesn't make sense. A third, I think, is overpayment. Tobias Rieder, goodbye, good gone, whatever. Yeah, you know what? Love to have Tobias Rieder back in Edmonton this year, but it hasn't worked. Yes, he's had his chances. I'm not saying he's been terrible, but it's just not going the way it needs to. And if the Oilers can offload him in a pick for Brandon Pirri, who is showing in limited playing time, 7 games, has more points Then Tobias Rieder is lighting up the goal column when he gets into games for the Vegas Golden Knights. How can you deny that move, literally just giving up a third-round pick and getting a cheaper contract, doesn't make sense for our Edmonton Oilers? Guys, I want you to argue with me in the comments section down below. Make sure to leave your comment. I'll get back to you, and we'll hopefully have a very engaging Edmonton Oilers discussion. I'm Tyson. This has been Dolany TV. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new, because I don't want to lose you. If you're an Oilers fan, you want to make sure you're tuning in every day to make sure you're getting the news that counts for you, but with my little slant to it, yelling and arguing why I feel what is right. Guys, I will catch you in the next one.